Discover how a touching kiss changed a cold gangster's life forever. An incredible love story. In the shadowy streets of Chicago, darkness clings to the air like smoke. Tony, a 30-year-old gangster with a heart as hardened as the concrete he walks upon, has always fought to survive. Once a bright young boy with dreams of crafting beautiful wooden creations, everything changed when his family succumbed to despair. The values instilled by his father, hard work, dignity, honor, vanished, swallowed by the allure of fast money and power. Now, with a cold resolve, he operates in a world of crime, blinded by ambition and loyalty to a brotherhood rooted in violence. But the cold comfort of that life is pierced by a flickering light: his younger sister, Lily. She is a college student, a bright-eyed girl eager to change the world. Every time she sees him, her heart aches. She longs for the brother who once held her hand through life's challenges. To her, he is still Tony the carpenter, not Tony the thug. Inside the small community clinic, Clara works tirelessly, her scrubs stained with the sweat of her devotion. She pours herself into every patient, recalling the struggles of her own childhood. As she comforts a father unable to pay for his sick child's treatment, a fierce wave of indignation surges within her. She wrestles with her body, chest tight, tears brimming. "Not today," she whispers, clenching her fists. The lives rattling around her, victims of violence, despair, transcend mere numbers. They are stories, families, people deserving of hope. On the fateful night their destinies collide, Tony slips into the clinic, clothed in guilt and shadows. He strolls down the stark hallways, the sterile scent of antiseptic biting at him. When Clara catches sight of him, her heart races. In their silent standoff, something electric crackles between them. Perhaps it's the mutual understanding of their pain or the unspoken connection that binds them. Time halts. And in a moment that feels like both an eternity and a heartbeat, their lips meet, a cautious, hesitant kiss. Tony's heart thunders against his ribcage. For the first time in years, something warms his frozen core. Clara's innocence pulls at him, chiseling away the hard shell he has crafted. In this kiss lies everything: the flicker of hope that he could still change, that maybe he could escape the chains binding him to darkness. But just as hope ignites, danger lurks nearby. Words travel fast in the streets, and soon the whispers about Clara begin, seeping into her life. "Isn't that the nurse who kissed Tony? The gangster?" They resonate, transforming her good intentions into suspicion. Now, she is at risk of losing everything: her career, her place in the community she loves. With his heart torn in two, Tony stands on a precipice. Protect Clara or embrace the bonds forged in blood? Torn between two fierce loyalties, love and brotherhood, he understands the gravity of his choices. Can he find redemption in a life marred by sins? Can he save Clara from the fallout of his decisions, or will his past drag her down into the depths? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The streets murmur around them, alive with the pulse of dreams and nightmares, as Tony grapples with his next move. The weight of his life's darkness presses against his chest, yet in the sunlight of Clara's unwavering strength, he dares to hope. But the road ahead is perilous, with the specter of his choices looming large. Can love emerge victorious on this treacherous path? Will Tony's heart beat toward redemption or continue to drum a dirge of despair? The blood-soaked streets await his decision, as fate prepares to unveil its hand in the drama that's far from over. Tony woke up that night restless, tossing and turning in his dimly lit apartment. The kiss with Clara replayed in his mind, wrapping around him like a familiar refrain he couldn't shake. It was both a comfort and a curse. He stared at the ceiling, contemplating the walls he'd built around his heart. Would he allow himself to feel again? Meanwhile, Clara struggled to focus on her duties at the clinic. The whispers of the town echoed in her mind, each word a hammer striking her sense of purpose. She always knew the world outside the clinic could be cruel, but finding herself caught in the firestorm of gossip surrounding her was unexpected. People will talk, she whispered to herself, but the fear sawed at her confidence. What if her colleagues narrowed their eyes? What if the community turned its back? There was a shift in the atmosphere when she walked through the clinic doors that morning. Whispers cascaded along the corridors like rolling thunder, sending waves of anxiety through her heart. When she caught sight of Lydia, her mentor, a sense of dread washed over her. Clara knew the older nurse wouldn't hesitate to voice her disapproval. "Clara, can we talk?" Lydia's voice was sharp, cutting through the chatter surrounding them. Panic gripped her as she followed Lydia into the break room. The weight of unseen eyes bore down on her. "I heard about last night," Lydia began, her tone stiff. "You really kissed him?" Swallowing hard, Clara remained silent. How could she explain the impulse behind that moment? It was a mistake, she finally managed. A mistake? Or was it something else? Lydia pressed, disappointment clouding her expression. Clara wanted to defend herself but faltered under the scrutiny. "You know who he is. A gangster. He could ruin you." Tony's face ghosted into her thoughts, the warmth of his embrace still fresh in her memory. He had a darkness about him, yes, but he also carried an ache she recognized. "I think there's more to him." She hesitated. Lydia shook her head. "This is dangerous, Clara. You need to keep your distance." But how could she? The connection nagged at her, pulling her closer to the flame. Meanwhile, Tony paced in the back room of a bar, the familiar surroundings doing little to soothe his turmoil. His crew shot him sideways glances, sensing the shift in his demeanor. They were blood brothers bound by violence, but in that moment, something distinct stirred within him when his thoughts drifted to Clara. "What's got you so twisted, Tony?" Marco, one of his closest allies, inquired, leaning against the bar. "Looking for trouble?" "No," Tony replied, barely above a whisper. "Just thinking. About that nurse?" Marco's smirk suggested trouble. "Man, she's outta your league. You know that, right? Stick with what you know." His word struck a chord deep within Tony. For the first time, he felt the weight of his choices. The streets could only lead to more bloodshed, while Clara offered something shining and new hope. "Listen, I gotta do something," he began, an unfamiliar determination igniting his resolve. Cracking his knuckles, he took a deep breath, contemplating every whispered word and every sidelong glance they cast upon him. He couldn't let Clara be swept away in the recklessness of his world. As he stepped outside, the streets felt different under his feet. He was no longer just a man lost in darkness. He was a brother seeking redemption, a man willing to fight for the glimmer of light in his life. The question was, would Clara see him for who he could become? That night, as he approached the clinic, a heavy weight of dread settled in his stomach. He would have to confront his past to save what could be a future. Could he protect Clara from the life he had led? And would she forgive him for the man he was? But as he stepped into the spotlight of the neon lights surrounding the clinic, everything shifted again. A figure stood waiting outside, the shadows flickering with uncertainty. It wasn't Clara. Who was it? And why did the air feel suddenly charged with danger? His heart raced, and for the first time since the kiss, his fight or flight instincts kicked in. What awaited him in the depths of that night? Would his past catch up with him before he could ensure Clara's safety? He took another step forward. As Tony stepped closer, the figure materialized, revealing a man in a dark jacket, his features obscured by the dim glow of the streetlight. A cold rush swept through him. The guy was familiar, someone from the wrong side of town. Derek, a low-level thug with a reputation for stirring trouble. Tony, Derek called, his voice low and steady, like a predator slithering through the night. Been hearin' things about you. Tony's heart leaped into his throat. The weight of the past clawed at him like a beast hungry for retribution. What do you want? Tony shot back, trying to mask his alarm with defiance. Derek stepped forward, invading Tony's space. I want you to remember who you are. You think you can just forget everything? Forget us? The sneer in his voice sent a chill down Tony's spine. Not forgetting anything, Tony replied, forcing the words through clenched teeth. But in that moment, he felt that tug between his old life and the hope Clara ignited within him. Derek tilted his head, his eyes narrowing. Rumor has you're gettin' soft. Maybe a pretty nurse has your head in the clouds? The threat lingered heavy in the air, and Tony's fists clenched. Don't bring her into this, he warned, the protectiveness flaring like fire. Oh, but she's in it now, isn't she? You might want to keep your flirting under control. You wouldn't want her to get hurt. A surge of anger surged through Tony. You don't scare me. But deep down, he felt the truth of Derek's words. He'd been pulling Clara into a world filled with chaos, and he had no right to put her in danger. Just remember, Tony, Derek continued, a dangerous smile tugging at his lips, the streets don't forgive. With that, he turned and melted back into the shadows, leaving behind a suffocating silence. Tony stood there, fighting the urge to chase after him. His past was like a shadow that loomed over him, a constant reminder of the decisions he made. Every ounce of him wanted to protect Clara, but could he really leave behind the life that had defined him for so long? Meanwhile, Clara was still at the clinic, her thoughts buzzing with anxiety. Each patient interaction felt distant, muffled by the sudden weight of her feelings. She replayed her moments with Tony, the laugh they shared, the sparks in his eyes. Why did his affection make her heart race and her head spin? But then came Lydia's warning, echoing in her mind like a relentless drumbeat. With a deep breath, she stepped outside for air, feeling the cool night breeze against her skin. The town was quieter than usual, the streetlights flickering like candles in the darkness. A sudden thought struck her: she needed to know where Tony stood, what he felt. As she walked in the direction of the bar, each step felt like a gamble. She wasn't just going to see him, she was going to confront her heart. She had to understand if their kiss was just a fleeting moment or the first stroke of something deeper. Then, just as she reached the corner of the street, she caught sight of Tony, his silhouette stark against the undefined backdrop of the night. The sight brought a rush of warmth, but she also sensed his turmoil. It was in his posture, his clenched fists, even the way he stared into the darkness as if searching for something buried deep within himself. Tony! She called out, her voice breaking the silence. He turned at the sound, the surprise in his eyes morphing into something softer. But just then, a flicker of apprehension crossed his face. What was he hiding? What was he about to say? Clara, he started, his voice low. As she stepped closer, the air thickened with unspoken truths. What had they become? What choices had they made, and how could they face the future now standing before them, filled with uncertainty? And just as her heart began to hope, an ominous figure appeared at the end of the street, watching them intently. What danger awaited them now? Would his past ruin the chance for their future? Clara, Tony's words stalled, heavy in the air like a thick fog. The shadow at the end of the street loomed larger, stealing away her breath. Who is that? She asked, glancing past him, her voice trembling as her heart raced. Tension coursed through the silence, each second stretching painfully. Tony didn't respond, his gaze locked on the figure. It was Derek again, stepping from the darkness as if he owned the night, swaggering toward them with an unsettling grin. Didn't he expect to see you both out here together? Derek called out, his tone dripping with mockery. Looks like you're getting yourself into trouble, Tony. And trouble has a way of finding those it wants. Clara tightened her grip on the bag slung over her shoulder. Instinct told her to step back, to hide from whatever storm was brewing between these two men. Derek, Tony snapped, stepping protectively in front of Clara. The heat radiating off him was palpable, but so was the undercurrent of fear. You need to leave. Now. Ah, but we were just getting started, Derek cooed, his eyes flicking between them like a hawk assessing its prey. I just wanted to remind you who you're dealing with. Best not to forget that. Everything in Clara screamed at her to run. She could feel the danger coiling around them, suffocating and real. Tony, she whispered, her voice barely audible. He glanced back at her, the determination etched on his face. I won't let him get to you. But she saw the uncertainty flicker in his eyes. Was that a promise or a wish? Before she could process the gravity of the moment, Derek took a menacing step closer. Isn't it funny how fast things can change? One moment you're free, he said, flashing a wicked smile, and the next you're right back where you started. Stay away from her, Tony growled, his fists balled at his sides, a fragile shield against Derek's threats. Oh, I'm not here for her, Derek chuckled, taking another step closer, fitting the pieces of the night together in his own twisted game. I'm here for you, buddy. I want you to remember how easy it is to lose everything. A chill ran through Clara. They were standing on a precipice, and it felt like the ground was crumbling beneath them. She reached out, touching Tony's arm gently. You don't have to do this alone, she urged, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. Tony turned to look at her, that warmth washing over him again, flickering with hope. I can't let him drag you into my mess. But just as her heart surged with a glimmer of belief, Derek burst into mocking laughter, cutting through their moment like a knife. Mess? Is that what you call it? This is your life, Tony. You can't just walk away. Tony, what did he mean? Clara's voice trembled, an urgency in her tone. The past wrapped around them tightly, threatening to strangle their fragile connection. Before Tony could respond, the night seemed to explode into chaos as Derek lunged forward, fists raised, and everything blurred together in a rush of adrenaline and fear. Clara, get back! Tony shouted, but she didn't move. In that chaotic instant, she realized she wouldn't let him fight his battles alone. Her heart raced, and as she inhaled deeply, she found strength within her. Tony! She called. I'm not afraid. But as the confrontation unfolded, she could feel the weight of fate pressing down. Would love be enough to shield them both from the darkness that had been all too eager to return? And just as the chaos reached a crescendo, the unmistakable sound of sirens echoed in the distance, crashing through the night. Would their moment of hope shatter in the wake of old demons? Or would they find a way to confront both the past and the future together? The blaze of red and blue lights flashed against the darkness, illuminating the scene and casting long shadows as the sirens grew louder, nearing with a ferocity that rivaled the storm brewing in Clara's heart. For a fleeting moment, Derek hesitated, the mockery slipping away from his face, replaced by something almost akin to fear. Tony seized the moment. You don't own this street, Derek. You're nothing without your games, he shouted, his voice steadying as an unfamiliar strength surged through him. Derek's smile faded, the facade cracking. Games? You think this is a game? He sneered, but there was an edge to his voice now, a hint of uncertainty wrapped beneath the bravado. Clara felt the pulse of the lights, the shifting atmosphere around them. They weren't alone anymore, help was coming. Yet the air was thick with tension, and she couldn't shake the worry gnawing at her. Would they arrive in time? Nothing you do scares me anymore, Derek, Tony pressed on, his shoulders squared against her protective instinct. Enough is enough. Oh, sweet Tony, Derek replied, his words turning caustic, you still think you can stand up to me? You think just because you have her here, you've won? Let her go, just walk away, Tony demanded, his fists still clenched, ready to protect Clara at all costs. In the chaos, Clara felt her voice rise, steady and clear. No more. You need to stop, Derek. This has to end. The three stood there amidst the growing cacophony of sirens, the stillness of the street mimicking the freeze in time that enveloped them. Clara's heart thundered with every beat, her breath quickening as a new sense of purpose ignited inside her. Derek snorted, glancing at the approaching lights like they were an insignificant blur. Are you really willing to stand against me, Clara? You don't know what you're getting into. But she didn't flinch. Maybe you don't know what we've been through. Maybe you don't understand how much we're willing to fight for each other, she countered, stepping forward. Tony shot her a wary glance, his gaze a mixture of admiration and concern. Clara shook her head, her resolve bright against the darkness. We can face this together. I'm not going to let him win. Derek's grin reappeared, twisted and cruel. You think you have the upper hand? Make sure you cherish that illusion while it lasts. The cops won't be able to protect you. Not from me. His words fell like stones in the fragile atmosphere, but Clara refused to succumb to the fear swelling in her chest. She could feel her strength buoyed by Tony's presence, like anchors slowly lifting the weight off her heart. Just as the sirens reached a deafening peak, Derek hissed under his breath, his bravado crumbling. This isn't over, Tony. You'll regret this. With a final glare, he turned and retreated into the shadows, disappearing just as the police cruisers pulled to the curb, lights swirling, a barrier against the dangers lurking in the dark. The tension snapped, the reality settling heavily. Clara and Tony stood together, breathless, unsure of what came next. It felt like they had crossed a line, a threshold neither could turn back from. Are you okay? Tony asked, his voice low, concern etched across his features. Clara nodded, but deep inside, questions swirled. What happens now? Will he come back? What did he mean? As fear danced close to the surface again, their moment of triumph felt precarious. Uncertainty loomed like dark clouds above them, but beneath it all, something else flickered a resolute spark. Whatever happens, we'll face it together, Tony whispered, the determination in his eyes igniting a warmth that enveloped them. They took a step closer. The past was murky, but they had just stood against darkness together. A fleeting moment suggested a broader horizon, one filled with challenges, love, and perhaps, a path to healing. But an unsettling thought lingered in her mind. Was Derek right? Would this truly be the beginning of their battle? As the police approached for questioning, realizing they were not yet out of the woods, Clara felt herself holding her breath once more. But what they didn't know was whether the fight they had just begun was one they could win together or if it would drive them apart. The police officers stepped cautiously out of their cruisers, their expressions a mix of authority and concern. Clara felt the intensity of their presence, like a shield guarding them from the worries bubbling just below the surface. She clung to Tony's arm, her heart racing, caught between relief and apprehension. Are you two all right? One of the officers asked gently, his tone almost soothing against the chaos. Oh, we're fine, Tony quickly assured, though the quiver in his voice betrayed his true feelings. Clara interjected, her words tumbling out in a rush. Derek has been following us. He threatened us. He said we were in danger. The officer's expression hardened, and he glanced toward where Derek had disappeared. We'll need to file a report, he stated, writing in his notepad. Can you describe him? As she spoke, Clara felt the weight of every gaze on her. The reality of their situation sank in. This wasn't just their fight anymore, it had drawn in outsiders, people who wouldn't understand the history, the complex emotions swirling between them. Have they shared the truth, the full story of how Derek had wormed his way into their lives, threatening everything they cared about? After what felt like hours, the officers took their statements and assured them they would increase patrols in the area. Clara glanced at Tony, whose brows were furrowed in thought. She could see the turmoil in his eyes, he hadn't relaxed even for a moment since Derek's departure. "I've got to get us out of here," he finally said, scanning the surroundings as if expecting Derek would materialize from the shadows. The way he turned his body, ready to shield her at all costs, made Clara's heart swell. "Okay, but where to?" she asked, feeling the anxiety creeping back in. "Any place that feels safe. Friends. Family. We need to regroup." They started walking, their footsteps echoing in the silence left behind after the chaos. With each step, Clara sensed the bond between them strengthening, as though the darkness that had threatened their happiness was merely a pit stop on the path to something brighter. As they approached the park down the street, the world seemed to slow around them. Clara remembered the last time they had been here, a picnic under sun-dappled trees. That day had been filled with light, laughter, and gentle touches. Now it felt like they were stepping back into that bubble, seeking refuge from their reality. Sitting on a bench, they took deep breaths, the fresh air filling their lungs, a balm for their frayed nerves. Clara turned to Tony, catching the way his eyes reflected the myriad of emotions he was grappling with. "Do you really think he'll come back?" she asked, her fear creeping into her voice as she played with a loose thread on her sleeve. "He will," he replied firmly, but then his expression softened, and he added, "but we'll be ready. We've made it this far." Caught in the heat of emotion, she leaned closer, compelled by an urge deeper than understanding. The space between them narrowed to nothing, the noise of the outside world fading as she brushed her lips against his. It was a gentle kiss, but it carried the weight of 1,000 silent promises. When they pulled back, Tony's eyes were wide, shimmering with surprise and something more hope. "This changes everything, doesn't it?" he whispered, a layer of vulnerability filtering into his tone. "Maybe it does," Clara murmured, her heart overflowing with courage from a love that felt unbreakable. But just as everything began to feel like it could be okay, the vibrant daylight dipped into shadows, and Clara's phone buzzed in her pocket, still filled with unanswered questions. Glancing down at the screen, her stomach dropped. Derek had sent her a message, "You can't hide forever. I'll be back. Count on it." With a chill creeping up her spine, Clara looked at Tony. The shift in atmosphere was palpable. They had just taken a step forward, but the ground beneath them felt oh so unstable. "Tony, we need to talk," she said, meeting his worried gaze. A storm was still brewing, and the real battle had just begun. What would they do now? Clara's heart raced, each beat echoing in her ears as the weight of Derek's message hung between them like a storm cloud. The kiss that had warmed her soul now felt overshadowed by an impending darkness. She could see the questions rising in Tony's gaze, like steam from a pot about to boil over. "What do you mean?" he pressed, instinctively leaning closer, as if trying to shield her from the chaos swirling inside his mind. Clara took a breath, steadying herself against the wave of anxiety threatening to crash over her. "It's like he knows where we are. He won't just give up. Derek is dangerous, and I don't know how far he'll go." Tony ran a hand through his hair, frustration flickering across his features. "We need to go to the police again. If he's sending you messages, they need to be involved. We can't let him control us like this." "But what if he finds out? What if he retaliates?" Her voice trembled with fear. Every worst-case scenario played out in her mind, images of Derek looming large over them, laughing in the face of their attempts to escape. "Nothing will happen to you while I'm around," he asserted, steel in his voice. "We can stay with someone who knows him. Family, maybe my uncle. He's got a place in the next town over. It'll be harder for Derek to track us down there." Clara considered the option, a tug-of-war between anxiety and a flicker of hope wrestling within her. "You think we'll be safe?" He nodded fervently. "I promise. I'm not letting him take you from me. Not now." With thoughts racing, Clara nodded. Tony's determination ignited a spark in her heart, and for a fleeting moment, she felt the grip of fear lessen. But as they sat on that bench, reality loomed large. The approaching shadows stretched across the park, creeping closer, reminding her that safety was not simply a destination, it was a battle. Rising from the bench, Clara felt a sense of urgency propel them forward as they made their way towards Tony's car. Each step felt heavier than the last, but the closer they drew to their goal, the more their resolve began to crystallize. "Do you remember when we first met?" Tony asked, breaking the tension as they navigated the familiar streets. "You made me laugh so hard over that stupid trivia game." She smiled, the memory flooding her with warmth despite the looming threat. "And you lost miserably. I think I asked you what the capital of Iceland was." "Hey, geography isn't my strong suit," he replied with a chuckle, his eyes sparkling with that familiar fire. "I remember thinking you were unlike anyone I'd met before." "What do you mean?" she asked, leaning into the moment, letting it draw her away from the dread that loomed. "You were just so." He paused, searching for the words, "real. You didn't hold back like every opinion mattered to you. I admired that." "Did you only admire me?" Clara's tone turned teasing, but deep down, her heart thudded with eagerness. "Definitely more than that," he replied, glancing at her with a smirk. They shared a brief laugh, an escape from their impending reality. But the laughter was cut short as Clara's phone buzzed again, making her jump. Another message from Derek. "Running away 1T help. I'll find you." The stark words sliced through their moment, and she felt the chill crawl back, icy and relentless. "Clara." Tony began, his voice low, serious. "We can't hide. We have to confront this." "What do you mean?" Clara felt a ball of fear twist in her stomach at the thought of facing Derek head-on. "I mean, we need to end this once and for all." The determination in his voice frightened and thrilled her at the same time. Could they really take that next step? What would that confrontation look like? As they reached the car, their shared glance spoke volumes. They were headed for something bigger than themselves now. Yet as they got inside and drove away, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that their greatest test was still ahead. The true battle for their lives and love was just beginning. "Are you ready for this?" she asked, gripping the seat's fabric beneath her hands as they hit the road. Tony's eyes sparkled with fierce resolve, more than ever. "Let us do this together." But even as they drove towards the unknown, the echo of Derek's threat lingered in her mind. How far would he go to reclaim what he believed was his? With their hearts pounding in sync, they approached the next chapter of their story, one that would determine whether their love could withstand the storm ahead or be destroyed by it. Clara felt the familiar weight of anxiety settle in her chest as the car rolled down the winding road. Trees loomed overhead, thick and dark, creating a tunnel that closed them off from the outside world. The air was thick with anticipation and fear, a concoction that made her head feel light. "Tony," she started, a tremor in her voice. "What if we're making a mistake?" He glanced at her, his brows furrowed with concern. "We're not. We need to take this back. To gain control. You're not alone in this, Clara." His words were meant to comfort her, but doubt gnawed at her insides. What if Derek was already waiting for them? What if he was always closer than they thought? The last message hung over them like the scent of smoke from a distant fire, a sign of something wrong yet invisible. As they arrived at the outskirts of town, they passed familiar landmarks, the diner they used to hang out in, the alley where they first shared a real kiss. Memories flooded her mind, bright moments of laughter and connection that felt like a lifetime ago. "It's crazy to think how much has changed," she murmured, barely aware that she was speaking. Tony nodded, his grip firm on the steering wheel. "We've come a long way together. And we're not losing that." "Together," she echoed, stealing a glance at him. She wanted so desperately to believe in that promise. But the thought of confrontation filled her with dread. What if together was not enough? As they pulled into the driveway of his uncle's house, a quaint little cottage surrounded by a white picket fence, Clara's heart raced again, but this time with urgency. "We need to come up with a plan. We can't just go in there unprepared," she insisted, her fingers twitching with nerves. "Agreed," Tony said, parking the car. "Let us figure out what we can do to protect ourselves." They stepped out of the car and made their way to the porch. She could see the vulnerability in his stance, the slight tremble of his hands. He was scared too. Inside, they found the living room comforting and warm, a stark contrast to the ice creeping down Clara's spine. His uncle greeted them with an easy smile that faded once he sensed the tension in the air. "What is going on?" he asked, concern breaking through his jovial demeanor. Clara exchanged a nervous glance with Tony. "It's a long story, but we need your help." With the details spilling out, Clara felt the weight of their situation pressing down. Tony's uncle listened, a serious look settling on his face. "Derek sounds like no small threat. If he is as dangerous as you say, you need a plan." Clara nodded, her heart racing again as her thoughts filled with strategies, moves, and countermoves. But in the back of her mind, the shadows of doubt loomed larger. Would a plan even work? "First," his uncle began, "we need to make sure you two stay off the grid. No social media, no phone calls to anyone outside. We'll stay vigilant." The gravity of those words sank in, intertwining hope and fear in her chest. It meant sacrificing some normalcy, but it felt like their only chance. Tony placed a reassuring hand on her back, grounding her. "No matter what happens, we face it together, right?" "Right," she replied, though uncertainty lingered in her mind like a storm cloud. As they settled in, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were just waiting for the other shoe to drop. "Clara?" Tony's voice pulled her from her thoughts, his eyes narrowing slightly. "You know I'm here for you, right?" "I know," she said softly, her heart warming at his unwavering support. But just then, Clara's phone buzzed again. The hairs on the back of her neck tingled as she reached for it, dread twisting in her stomach. The screen lit up with yet another message from Derek. "You think hiding will save you? You have no idea what I'm capable of." Her heart plummeted. "What does he mean?" she whispered, feeling her world teeter on the edge of chaos. Tony's expression hardened, determination flaring back to life. "We have to act now. The longer we wait, the more dangerous this becomes. We're going to confront him." "Him?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "What if he is waiting for us?" In that thrilling moment, her resolve hardened. With courage surging within her, she knew things would never be the same again. As they steeled themselves for what lay ahead, Clara felt a mix of terror and strength. Would they seize the chance to turn the tide? Or would Derek's darkness consume them both? The moment was coming, and this time, the stakes were higher than ever. Would they be ready when the final confrontation unfolded? Tony stared at Clara, the flickering light from the old lamp casting shadows across his face. "We have to be smart about this," he said, his voice low and steady. The urgency resonated between them, like a taut wire ready to snap. "Right," Clara agreed, but her mind raced ahead, pondering the worst possible outcomes. What if Derek has friends? What if he is stronger than we think? Her voice trembled, forced to confront fears that had become all too real. "He might," Tony replied, "but we know him better. He is cocky, he underestimates us." There was a fierceness in his eyes that inspired Clara, even amid the swirling anxiety. They brainstormed tactics, flipping through the pages of old notebooks on the coffee table, jotting down anything they could use. Clara's fingers danced over the paper as she sketched out their idea. "We could set a trap. Lead him somewhere where we'll have the advantage." "Exactly." Tony nodded, a glimmer of hope igniting between them. "We'll use his own arrogance against him. But we need a backup plan, just in case things go south." Clara liked hearing his resolve, even if it felt far-fetched. They took turns outlining scenarios, feeding off each other's energy, riding the wave of constructive tension. Hours slipped by, the adrenaline fueling their creativity. Clara felt a growing bond, unlike anything she had experienced before, knitting them closer together through panic and strategy. But as night fell, the darkness crept in more than just outside. The air thickened with uncertainty. Despite the plans taking shape, the shadows of doubt still lingered. Clara glanced at her phone, hoping it would remain silent. When it chimed again, a chill ran down her spine. She picked it up, hesitating as she met Tony's gaze. What if he sent another message? She whispered, feeling her heart race in tandem with her fear. Open it, Tony urged, his own nervousness showing as he edged closer. Taking a deep breath, Clara tapped the screen and read Derek's message. You think I don't know what you're planning? I'll find you wherever you run. Anger flared up inside her. He's insane. He can't just do this, her fists clenched tight, frustration bubbling over. He can and he will if we don't act fast, Tony said, trying to remain calm, even as his own fury grew. The discussion shifted back to logistics, circled around how they would confront Derek, but deep down, Clara felt a fracture forming in her resolve. Would they really be able to pull this off? Time passed, every tick of the clock a reminder that they were 1 second closer to a confrontation that could shatter everything they held dear. I wish we could just disappear, she admitted, the weight of fear and regret anchoring her words. And miss out on what we have? Tony shook his head, his expression sincere and unwavering. That would be a mistake. We're in this together, remember? His words wrapped around her heart, igniting a flame of hope, yet the turmoil within her wouldn't fade away so easily. Let us get some rest, Tony suggested gently. We need our strength for what's coming. Clara nodded, but as she lay in the guest room, sleep was a distant dream. Images of Derek invaded her thoughts, each more ominous than the last. Would she have the courage needed in the face of danger? Just as her eyelids began to grow heavy, a loud thud echoed through the house, jolting her wide awake. Heart racing, she pushed herself up in bed, listening. A second thud followed, causing panic to ripple through her body. Tony? Clara whispered, dread pooling at the pit of her stomach. She got up, stepping cautiously towards the door. The shadows felt longer, the house colder. And then, a third thud. This felt different. They had to act, and fast. What if Derek found them before they were ready? Clara braced herself, her heart pounding like a drum. Would tonight mark the end of their fight, or the start of something new? With each step she took towards the living room, it became clear, they were racing against time, and in the encroaching darkness, anything could happen. As she crossed the threshold, the question hung heavy in the air: would their plans hold, or was fate reaching for them already? Clara stepped into the living room, the air thick with tension. Her heart thudded like a relentless drum as fear gnawed at her insides. Every instinct screamed for her to retreat, but she took a deep breath and stepped forward, eyes scanning the dimly lit room. Tony? She called softly, but the silence seemed to swallow her words whole. Casting a glance around, she noticed the window slightly ajar, curtains fluttering like whispers on the breeze. The rhythmic thuds echoed from the back door now, more urgent, more violent. There was no time for hesitation. She glanced toward the hallway, instinctively seeking Tony. Just as she turned, the door swung open with a resounding crash, revealing a figure lurking in the shadows. Clara's breath hitched. It was Derek, his smile twisted, eyes gleaming with malevolence. Surprise! His voice dripped with mockery, echoing through the now frigid room. Clara's heart raced, adrenaline coursing through her veins. What do you want? She shouted, trying to muster strength even as fear threatened to engulf her. Derek's gaze drifted, assessing her with the confidence of someone who believed they were in control. I came to get back what's mine, he taunted, taking a step closer. "Leave her alone." Tony's voice roared from the adjacent hallway, fearlessly stepping into view. He stood firm, body tense, a protective stance that radiated strength and courage. "Ah, the knight in shining armor," Derek smirked, sizing Tony up. "But you can't protect her from everything, especially not from me." Clara felt Tony's presence by her side, a warmth that wrapped around her, chasing away the frigid clutches of dread. But still, uncertainty twisted within her. "You can't think you'll win this," Clara said, her voice steadier than she felt. "You won't hurt us anymore." Derek chuckled, a sound that sent shivers down her spine. "What can you do, Clara? You're just a nurse, and he's just a thug clinging to a dream." His words sliced through the air, but Tony's grip tightened around Clara's shoulder. "You underestimate us, Derek. This ends now." As Derek's laughter faded, the intensity in the air thickened, palpable like smoke before a fire. "What are you going to do? Call the cops? You think they'll help?" Clara took a breath, mustering every ounce of courage she had. "We're not running anymore, Derek. You've been a shadow in our lives long enough." "Oh really?" His tone was incredulous as he moved forward, closing the space between them. "And what makes you think you can confront me?" "Because I know who you are. You're not invincible." "Not against us," Tony declared, stepping closer to Clara protectively. Derek's bravado faltered for a moment, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. Clara saw it, there was a crack in his armor. Maybe they had a chance. With a sudden rush, Clara took a step forward, heart pounding, adrenaline surging through her. "You think you can control us with fear? This is bigger than you, Derek. We won't be victims anymore. Stop right there." He hissed, but the shift in his demeanor was undeniable. Just as Clara and Tony moved forward, determined to stand their ground, a police siren wailed through the air, cutting through the thick tension like a knife. Derek froze, eyes darting to the window. "You bitches decided to play dirty. Not us." "You brought this on yourself," Tony replied, voice steady, a defiant edge in his tone. Derek's smirk vanished, replaced by a scowl of pure anger. "You think I'm afraid of them?" He turned and bolted toward the back exit, ready to escape into the night before the authorities closed in. "Stop!" Tony shouted, charging after him. Clara felt her heart leap as she followed, determined not to let fear control her anymore. If this confrontation was going to end once and for all, it had to be tonight. Outside, the blare of sirens filled the air, lights flashing against the darkness like beacons of hope. Derek was cornered now. "You think they'll find me?" He spat, turning on them, fury radiating from him. But they were ready. "Whatever you do, you can't escape the truth," Clara shouted, taking a deep breath as she stepped forward alongside Tony. The officers arrived just in time, approaching with authority, lights illuminating the scene and casting everything in a stark contrast. With Derek trapped between them and the police, Clara felt the rush of victory flow through her veins. The officers moved in, hands raised and ready. "Drop the weapon," they commanded. Derek's bravado shattered, panic flooding his expression. "You think you can stop me?" he screeched, realizing the game was over. Tony stepped protectively beside Clara, drawing strength from her presence. "They already have." In the whirlwind that followed, Derek was apprehended. Clara felt a mix of relief and triumph wash over her. Finally, the chains of fear that had bound her were shattering into pieces around her, just like the shroud of darkness surrounding her life. As Derek was taken away in handcuffs, Clara turned to Tony, the weight of the past lifting gradually. Tears of joy brimmed in her eyes as she caught his gaze, his own relief reflected back at her. "We did it," she whispered, disbelieving yet overjoyed. Tony wrapped her in his embrace, warmth radiating through their connection. "Together," he said softly, his voice laced with emotion, we can face anything. And just like that, in the quiet aftermath of chaos, they stood united, battling away shadows that had once threatened to overwhelm them. Clara felt free, lighter than ever, as hope began to bloom anew in her heart. The journey hadn't been easy, but together they proved that love could pierce through even the darkest nights. Together, they were unbreakable. Now this is it, folks. If you felt the tension and the love, you need to subscribe now for more heart-stopping stories. This is the moment to show your support. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm so we can keep this channel thriving. Comment below with your thoughts and feelings about this ending. I want to hear it all. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. Let us spread the hope together.